Hey, what's up, Eric?
Man, look at that intro. You guys have really jazzed things up since the last time I was here.
Yeah.
You so undersold that. You're like, "Hey, we got this little new intro," like, and then it's like this whole highly produced thing, man. Looks like you brought in an agency to do that. That was killer.
Thank you. Actually, so that was Kevin, the co-host of the podcast. He actually created that entirely from scratch, except for the
Nice.
TV. But everything
Well,
else is from scratch.
he's got some talent then, man. That was pretty fun. I enjoyed that.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, we wanted to fit all the different nostalgic things that we've been talking about in the collectible space, so it was fun to do that in 10 seconds. It was really
Yeah,
fun.
well, you killed it.
Man,
It was awesome.
oh, thanks. It's so good to see you, man. How you doing?
Yeah, yeah, you too, man. It's been too long. I always love coming
Good.
on here and chatting with you. I know I told you this before, but I'll tell the viewers too. Is like, dude, you've always just got such a positive attitude and smile on your face. You're one of those like infectious positive life force people. So like whenever I come on here and chat with you, it always makes my day. So even though I'm like traveling and got a weird setup right now, and I hate to say that you've got the better setup for sure this time. I feel like last time I was maybe competing because I had all those games behind me and stuff, and now I'm like hitting you from the weirdly symmetrical hotel room. But yeah, man, it's just always a blast to come on here, and I love what you do. So definitely wanted to make time for you today, even though I'm on the road and out of place.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, Eric. And yeah, it's so nice to have you on today, man. And I appreciate you getting involved in this charity auction. Very cool.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's I love that you put it together, and you deserve all the credit and did way more work than me and any of this stuff. But I just you when you asked, it was 100% something I had to give a few things to, and
Yeah,
hopefully they go for a decent price, and sounds like the money's going to a great cause. So I'm just excited to be a
very
part
cool
of it.
cause. Yeah, they're awesome organization. And it was actually the charity foundation was founded by Alfred Kahn, who brought Pokemon into the United States and
Yep,
Cabbage Patch Kids, and he's just a great guy. And
all
it's been
tied
really
together. It's
it's
beautiful.
all tied together. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
We had a chance to get to talk to him out in New York Comic Con, and that's where we got the Pokemon VHS signed by him, and that
Hmm.
got graded by Rewind, and that's up for auction too. So
Yep.
very excited
Well, hey,
for.
am I allowed to bid in the auction on the items
Yeah,
that I do?
100%. I'm
Okay.
bidding on stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
I already I already got bid by most of the things. It's
Yeah, that's
so that's
funny.
that's
That's great.
that's good. That's good. But
Hmm.
yeah, since you lost, come on, man. We actually had a great conversation last time you came on. It was a 3 episode series, and we talked about a lot of really cool stuff. Especially lately. What have you been collecting lately? Do you have a favorite pickup by chance?
Whew, favorite pickup? Let me start with the first part of that question, which is what I've been
Yeah,
buying lately. And I think,
yeah,
last time I was on here, I probably chatted a little bit about that Gold Prism World Cup collection that I'm building. And
yeah.
I'm still well after that. I'll give the very short version of that, which is Panini made a Prism World Cup set every 4 years because the World Cup's only every 4 years. They made them every 4 years since 2014. So there's three sets ever made: the 2014, 2018, and 2022. Within each of those sets, there's a gold card of each player, and that card is limited to just 10 copies. And a couple of years ago, I had the
Wow.
crazy idea that I was going to try to go and buy every single gold card of one of each player. And across all three sets, there's 801 in total. And I'm just below 650 now, which is like, I never thought I would make it this far on it. And probably last time we spoke, I was probably around 500, 550. So I've definitely made up some ground for sure.
That's wild.
And so that's one thing that I've definitely been working on. And then, dude, I think probably a little bit more up your alley is like I just can't get enough of video games, man. I cannot get enough of video
Yeah,
games. Like sports
yeah.
cards are my true and first love, and I probably spend way more money on them than like anything else. But the video game thing, man, I continue to think that that's a sleeping giant, and
Totally.
there's just a different level of nostalgia around video games that at least for me personally, no other category has really been able to properly capture. And so I don't know what video games have I bought recently. I just bought a really nice Black Ops for PS3, which like isn't a super expensive
Cool.
game, but it was a high grade and one that I played a lot of. And a really cool one that I just got back from VGA, which like I normally grade with WADA, but but there's some items that WADA doesn't grade, right? Like, so I had some
Right.
big box PC games, which WADA doesn't grade.
Oh yeah.
And so VGA is a really great place to send that type of stuff that's a little bit more bespoke and different sizes where WADA wouldn't have the holders. And I had an original first print Roller Coaster Tycoon big box game,
Yeah, I remember you posted
which
about
is so hard to find in the
that.
first place. And then it
Yeah.
was signed. It was signed by the creator, Chris
Oh
Sawyer.
my
And then
god,
it got like an
cool.
85 plus, which is a really solid grade for that type of old stuff. So like those new games back from VGA, those big box Roller Coaster Tycoons, definitely a few of my favorite recent purchases, and they're displayed. Next time we chat, you'll see them. They'll be like right here behind my head because I've got them displayed pretty prominently back at home.
Yeah, big shout out to VGA. We actually just added a late addition to the charity auction. This Ted Lasso collectible. Very cool. Yeah.
I did see that, and I've wanted to send them because I think that's technically like under their AFA branch, right?
Exactly.
I've wanted to send them a few of my old like video game action figures. I've got like some SSX tricky ones, and I don't know, dude. I'm just a sucker for anything slabbed up too. I feel like every collectible has got to be slabbed to like preserve it and display it. And so yeah, I that's that when you posted that, I actually was like, oh, I might want to buy that. That's pretty neat.
You should. It's really cool. Actually, I was thinking the same thing. I didn't think of myself. Hey, you don't have to ship it anywhere, huh? Just keep it right
there. You go.
It's actually also uncirculated, which is really cool.
Oh,
cool. You know about that?
Yep. I do know about that.
Yeah, video games you see it pretty often, and for VHS tapes as well, but more so for action figures, you see that pretty consistently. So it's very cool.
That makes sense. Does that make a difference in the value on action figures? Because I feel like in games it kind of is maybe negligible and people don't care as much if it's circulated or uncirculated. Does that make a difference in other categories? Do you know?
As of right now, we're not seeing a huge difference, but I think over time, as the demand increases, people are always going to look for ways to differentiate value, right? Like for comic books, you see that all the time, especially like for, Canadian variants. People put tremendous value on Canadian variants, newsstand variants. This is only a recent thing. This isn't something that's happened, maybe 15, 20 years ago, possibly. It was starting to become a thing, but it takes some time. But I think uncirculated will become a bigger deal over time.
Yeah, I could buy that. That's interesting. I don't think WATA gives a designation for anything uncirculated. Maybe I've seen them put on the back of a label before, like came from a 20 pack case or things like that.
Right.
But VGA definitely places it more prominently.
Yeah, definitely. And especially lately, there's been some incredible sales in the collectibles market. Boom, this Babe Ruth card. Wow.
Check it out, dude. You even have the tweet from my page pulled up to talk about it. How about that?
What an incredible sale. Can you tell our audience a little bit about this card?
Yes. So, I mean, this is the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth rookie card. It's his earliest known card that exists. I'm trying to remember the exact number of copies graded across all the different graders. I think the only companies that have graded any are SGC and PSA. Oh, can you still hear me?
Oh, there we go. Hey, yeah,
we're back. Okay,
yeah,
I'll just pick up at the beginning then. So this is the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth rookie card. This is the earliest known card of Babe Ruth, and I'm trying to remember exactly how many copies are graded across the different grading companies. I know SGC has graded a few. I know PSA has graded a few. I'm pretty sure this is the highest graded copy at SGC. There might be one tied with it, but I know there's none higher. There is a PSA 4 of this card floating around somewhere too, which would be really interesting now to sort of, how do you put a value on that when you've got a 7.2 million number on the SGC 3 here? And yeah, this is just, this is a massive sale of a card that is definitely important in the industry, but it's certainly not one that has risen to the level of the pop culture fame of the other really big cards, which I think is sort of an interesting talking point, right? Because like almost everyone has seen the T206 Honus Wagner, almost everyone's seen the 52 Topps Mantle. But honestly, until this card came for auction, there was one time when I think there was a fractional app that sold some piece of this card, and that was a little bit in the news at that time. But other than that, I hadn't really seen anyone talk about this card, and a lot of people asking questions on what it is and where it's from and all that sort of stuff. So certainly there are many cards that gain their value through being a prominent piece of pop culture. This to me is not totally one of those cards, at least in the sense that this card until now has not ever really transcended the trading card community. There's some people within cards that really knew about it, but outside of that, I feel like maybe my bubble's too close, but I feel like everybody knows a 52 Mantle and everyone knows a Honus Wagner. And this card's like a little bit below that, but in terms of historical importance, it's certainly right up there with them. And it's cool to see a card that's so unique and so rare come to auction. That is something that's typically been really only known by a few select collectors who really know their stuff, to really like reach a number this massive. And I think some people at certain points were estimating 10 million plus, I threw out the question of like, do you think this will become the most expensive card ever? All valid questions. I think, but in my opinion, I think this is a really strong sale on this card. Like if you would have asked me to price this card a year ago, I would have probably had it well below 7.2. So props to everyone at REA, Robert Edwards Auctions, that got that massive number on this card. And I think it's really great, particularly in a down market, to see a card like this sell for such a big number, and should, put some wind in the sails of collectors who are wondering when the market might make a turnaround.
Right. Yeah. It's sales like this that excites the market again, right? Because we're starting to see a lot of dips in a lot of cards and collectibles in general. But then you see a sale like this happen, and it just kind of reignites that excitement for investing in the collectible space, and it brings things back to perspective, especially things with historical value.
Totally. And I would say, and you can agree or disagree with me on this, be curious your take too. I think some of the stuff that has come down, it's been actually really good and healthy. There were some cards that just, and collectibles in general, where like there was a little bit of a supply squeeze, where there weren't that many graded copies of certain cards out there, but the cards themselves were not actually that rare. And so then like there was just this balloon in price, and some of the stuff that I felt like needed to come down was like a lot of these Panini National Treasures cards and base cards and things like that. And some of them have come down a long way. Some of them probably still have a ways to go. But to me, like, it's starting to feel like the prices accurately reflect the true value of these items. And I think that's the place where real healthy growth needs to come from. And you just can't have this, like, things can't go up and to the right 100% of the time. I think this more leveling of cards being properly valued against other cards, and cards that were being too high coming down a little bit, I view that as maybe not a good thing, quote unquote, but certainly a healthy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very interesting debate between natural scarcity versus artificial scarcity. I know that we talked about that in the podcast before, and especially for some of your tweets that you've sent out were really, really impactful. And again, it just presents information. Here's Joe Montana's highest sale of all time, and here's so-and-so's highest sale of all time. It's a 1-of-1 rookie card signed from National Treasures or whatever card's from, and they're about the same price. And it's like, what are your thoughts there? And it's interesting thing for people to think about and reflect on when you're assessing a guy who's proven quarterback, one of the best of all time, and his rookie card is at this price. What has a safer floor long term?
Yep, totally. And it's interesting, like, Brady's market has come down immensely in the last couple of years, and like over the same time frame, it's like Jordan Love is up, right? Like, so it's interesting to see, or like Will Levis is up tremendously, and like some of that makes sense, I guess, but also it's like, if the bellwether guys, the all-time greats, like the benchmark should be against those guys, right? So if Brady's down 20% and Montana's down 20% and, Jim Brown's down 20%, Walter Payton's down 20%, then all those other younger guys should be priced into them as well. And they should also be down 20%. So for some of these younger guys to be up while the market's down is even sort of a bigger, like, whoa, like you might want to be careful about some of the things that you're buying. And I love quarterback prospecting as much as anyone. It's fun and it's cool. And I've bought some cards from time to time and gotten smoked on a few. And I think for people who know the risk of what they're getting into, like, more power to you. Have a blast. Like, recognize the risk for sort of what it is. But sometimes I get worried when like there's someone who's new to the hobby and they put more money into a young quarterback than maybe they really should and really can afford, and they think it's some great investment guaranteed. And it's just like there's so much risk. There's so much risk built into those things. And I would almost attribute buying young quarterbacks to like day trading and buying collectibles of all time greats as more of like ETFs, right? That you're just like putting away and holding forever. So not that cards are a great, perfect example for the stock market, but if you had me make an analogy about those, that's certainly how I would think about it.
Speculation is a powerful drug.
Dude, you're telling me, man.
They get excited about speculating on players, because even in the comic book industry, investing in comic books, people speculated on characters coming to the MCU. The market has come down quite a bit, and the spec books have kind of gone off the tracks a little bit. We haven't really seen spec books take off like they did in 2021 and 2020. I'm not saying that in the future that it'll make a comeback, but at the same time, spec books in the comic book industry has definitely taken a seat back. But we also don't see, like in the sports in the sports world, we don't see games every day where players can just change overnight. Like Brock Purdy. That's wild, 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 man. That story of Brock Purdy, very humbling for me too, because being a Niner fan and seeing him do so well. I watched him in college, so it was really exciting to see his career take off like it has. It's been incredible.
Yeah, well, Purdy was definitely an interesting one because by the time he really started to gain popularity and everyone was like, "Oh, I got to go get Purdy. I got to go get Purdy." There was only
Yeah.
one or two products that existed with his cards in them.
Yeah,
And so there
exactly.
was like, again, it's like this supply squeeze of like, there's hardly anything out there for him. So prices quickly went up. And then some of it leveled out and some of it's done relatively well too. But that's sort of the risk you take on some of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So seeing this sale and seeing some of the sales that have happened over the past 6 months, where do you see the collectibles market heading in the next 6 months to a year? Are there any emerging trends or innovations that collectors should keep an eye on?
So I would tell people all the time, I think shorter time windows are harder to predict than longer time windows for some of this stuff, right? Like if you said, "Hey, where do you think collectibles will be in 10 years?" I'll say, I think they're going to be on average quite a bit more valuable and the industry will be significantly bigger. But if to say 6 to 12 months, I have some guesses, but I want to like just say that I feel pretty confidently that I'm not that confident about them, right? Like it's just it could be so hard to predict those shorter windows and what's going to happen. But if you made me guess in 6 to 12 months, I don't think that the cooling off of some of these things is done yet. And
Yeah.
but I also don't think that the floor is going to fall out from underneath anything either. So I would say I would expect, at least as far as prices go in the next 6 to 12 months, that prices continue to drop some, but not nearly as much as the previous 6 to 12 months. That's sort of where I would net out on pricing. I think in terms of trends, I don't know. I've certainly seen some video game stuff hold up really well. I've seen some of the top end Jordan PSA 10 Grails, various 90s inserts, things like that continue to set some new all time records. I think there will be items that certainly, and probably categories as a whole, that sort of buck those trends of the overall collectibles market, which I still see like maybe like, I don't know, soft landing is a terminology for what I would think of the next 6 to 12 months. But yeah, I think some things will buck those trends. I think, I don't know how much you saw about the Fanatics Tom Brady stuff that came out today, but like that type of stuff to me is like it's just so good for the industry and rallies so many people behind it, and it's like fun and exciting and so much more engaging than I feel like any of the predecessors have really ever been, right? So to me, that type of stuff, I think what people don't realize is that when a company acquires another company, things don't change immediately overnight, right? Like these things take time, and it's you buy a company and then it's trying to figure out, are these employees in the right places, are those employees in the right places, how are we going to restructure this thing? And then it's like the sets are being produced 6 to 12 months in advance for the most part too. So like even if you start day one to make some brand new set, it's like probably is at least 6 to 12 months before that ever even hits the shelves and people know about it, right? So I think now with some of these MLB debut patches, with
So
this
cool.
whole Tom Brady Expos thing, the incredible marketing campaign around the entire thing, I've been this way from the beginning. I continue to be this way. I just am very bullish on Fanatics getting into the industry and doing all this, and I think they're going to bring in collectors in a way that's never been done before. I think this is another example. This probably has football collectors buying baseball products for maybe the first time ever, right? It's probably got a lot
Totally.
of people who have seen Tom Brady tweeting about Topps trading cards, buying a box for the
Yeah.
first time ever,
Yeah.
or at least making a saved eBay search for the card or looking up how much it cost or where it's at, and just sort of getting in the brains of people that wouldn't necessarily think to buy cards right away. And so I'm excited by what they're doing, and I think just now we're starting to get a glimpse of what this industry is going to be. And I think over the next 6 to 12 months, I'm not, there's nothing that I know that you don't know or that other people out there wouldn't know. I don't have like some inside scoop I'm holding back, but I would just anticipate that over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll probably see a lot more really cool and impressive stuff from Topps and Fanatics like these things, because I just think it's only now, whatever it is, 12 to 18 months after the acquisition, that we're really starting to feel the fingerprints of the people that are in charge of that business now.
It's really tough to get people continuously get them excited about modern cards. Try to think of new things, new ways to to excite not just the current collectors, but also new collectors, like you mentioned. And seeing those MLB debut patch cards, I thought that was such a smart move and such a fun idea.
I think those are the best cards.
Yeah.
I think they're the best cards ever made.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's so cool. So everyone out there, just so you know, Topps actually is Topps, right? Is Topps? Yeah, Topps. They actually coordinated with the MLB to give rookie players patch cards or patches on their jersey that they wore for their first game. And then after the game, they took the patch off and they're going to put them on MLB rookie cards. And they're going to be one of one. They are one of one cards.
They're one of ones. The patches in the card, it's signed by the player. It's dated with their MLB debut. It's got the MLB hologram on the back, so you can look up the cert of the MLB hologram and verify that the patch in the card was used in that game on that day. They're only worn in the first game, like you said, so it's not like they wear it all season. It's one game. They cut it off the jersey, so cool. Topps has it, boom, it's done. I will tell you, there was 91 cards that they did this for in this first release. 91 players that did it for, so 91 cards. There was one Philadelphia Philly, and Phillies are like what I PC, and particularly, I in my personal collection, which is like just for fun for me and not an investment, I buy one of one Philadelphia Phillies card. So I'm like, this card comes up, I need to buy it. Sure enough, Backyard Breaks hit it. I think it's like the only debut patch I've seen that hit. It goes on eBay for 99 cents. Mind you, this player's name is McKinley Moore. I think he has less than 20 career innings in the MLB, and I'm pretty sure his ERA is like 10, right? So this is a guy who like came up for a couple of days, came back down, but made his debut, and he's like, I don't know, maybe he turns into a good player one day, but like there's no one's like really prospecting on McKinley Moore, right? So this is like, in terms of MLB debut patch cards, you would think this is like one of the lowest value ones. And so it came up for 99 cent eBay auction. I bid $3,700 on it and I lost it. It's like, oh man, like I wanted that card so bad, you know? And I'm like, I'm curious too, because if I was in the MLB, like obviously these guys all know about these cards. They're hand signed on card. They had the patch on their jersey. Like I'm thinking there's probably a lot of friends and family that are buying these cards, to be
1,000%.
honest. And to me too, like it's within investing in cards, in my opinion, if that's what you're setting out to do, I think it's more important to buy the right cards than it is to buy the right players. So what I sort of mean by that is I actually think it's easier to predict which sets and which inserts and which parallels are going to be important over time, rather than which players are going to ebb and flow and go up and down. And so to me, I would say that I think any card in that original 91 card set of the MLB debut patches, just based off the historic nature of it, even if it's a player that plays one inning and then never plays again in their lives, to me, that's a card that down the road is going to be more valuable, almost no questions asked. Might it come down a little bit in the next 1 to 2 years? Totally possible. But I think you zoom out and look at like, okay, what's the set value in 5, 10, 20 years? I just don't see any of these guys being cheaper than they are right now.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I can also see people trying to collect those, you know, people with deep pockets trying to go after all of them as a set, being only 91 of them.
Well, as I think about it, I could see one way that some of these go down. And that's for the really hyped rookies where people are like really speculating on them. Because there's guys like Volpe and Walker that are going to command, you know, 150, 250 grand. And if one of those guys doesn't pan out, then I wouldn't expect those cards to be worth that much long term. But I think these cards also have that $5 million+ upside, to be honest. You know, what if there was a Mike Trout one of these? What if there was a Ken Griffey Jr. one of these, right? Think about what those would be worth if those cards existed today. Or, you know, I can't say that without saying Ohtani too, right? Imagine there was an Ohtani one of these, right? Like it would be maybe considered the best card ever made. Full stop.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Oh man. Damn. I should have went after him. Are they all? They're all found.
It's not too late. No, that's the crazy thing. Is like
really,
there's 91 in the set. I've been tracking them. I think I'm only at 19 accounted for.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay.
And none of the big names have been hit yet. There's still Anthony Volpe.
Wow.
There's still Yoshida. There's still Senga. There's still Jordan Walker. Like none of the big names have been hit yet. And so,
dude, that's
it's like, are these super tough pools? Like totally. Am I like going to recommend people buy a single box to try to find one of these and like be banking on that? Like, no, I wouldn't expect that to happen if you're going to go buy a box for fun. But like, if you're just like, hey, I would love to get one of these of somebody, like you certainly haven't missed a boat on that.
So if you hit a Walker patch card, you're going to keep it, you're going to sell it. I know it's tough.
Man, What's the? I mean, I would probably sell it. I would go to that
Yeah.
McKinley Moore guy and be like, "All right, I'm just gonna give you $5 grand for this, and you can make the easiest 1,300 bucks you ever made." And then, because
Yeah.
I don't know, I with that much money, I don't like to risk that much money. So like
Right.
for
Right.
if I pulled a card worth $250,000 of a prospect, I probably would be inclined to sell it. If I pulled a $250,000 card of Messi, I might think differently about it just because that floor is a lot higher on someone that's already so proven. But yeah, it's always fun to sort of ask those questions, right? It's like, or to
Yeah.
sell, it's like, I don't know. Honestly, it's like I'd probably text someone who I know who's like a really big private client person and be like, "Hey, like I pulled this card. Don't tell anybody, but think you got anyone who's over 250, right?" And I would do it that way and privately float it to a few big collectors before I would sell. But
Yeah.
I think if I pulled that
Totally.
card, I would probably sell it for that price, unless I thought, maybe Golden offers a 300,000 MG on it, or PWCC or whoever,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I would explore all the options before I just went and smashed the bounty. But if
Yeah.
that was the high offer, I would take it. Yeah, I would take it.
That's a lot of liquidity. You could diverse into a lot of things. That's
That's what I'm saying,
you know,
man. You can
it's
do a lot. You can do a lot of damage in collectibles for that kind of
yeah,
money.
yeah, 100%. It's funny because I was mentioning this earlier for video games. Actually, during Black Friday is a great time to buy some nice modern games that are still sealed, especially for like Red Dead Redemption 2. It went down to $20. Anything under $20 for a modern game, especially for a modern game that majority of sales were probably digital. It's going to be very interesting, especially with the recent news about Best Buy announcing that they're going to stop selling sealed
Yep.
media. That's, I mean,
I
we
think what's
talked about this
interesting
for a
too
while.
is Yeah, I think what's interesting too is like some of these more limited edition releases where it's like a different size box and it comes with keychains or it comes with a certain thing, right? Where it's like, hey, we made 500 units of this game in this limited edition run. It's like, even though those are things that might be harder to grade and weirder to store, I sometimes view those within the ultra modern games. I would view those as the places where I would probably run to first. That and like maybe some of these, I kind of like some of those like first print Switch games where there's like 500 copies graded and there's like two 10.0s. Like to me, those definitely have some upside too. I haven't personally bought a ton of the ultra modern stuff. I try to stay like PS3, Xbox 360 and earlier, at least because
Yeah,
I'm grading everything right away too. And there's
right,
not many like PS5 games that are worth grading right now. But yeah, if you're just
right.
buying stuff to stick in your closet, I'm never gonna say that's a bad.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because I know what you mean. There's definitely a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them out there, and will the demand reach the supply? Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But I will say it is a game that I love personally. So just even as a collector, for me, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that actually the only game I finished in the past 10 years. So like, I'm a sucker for westerns, man. I love it, love it. Yeah, that and also Hogwarts Legacy. I was able to snag like 5 or 6 copies of Hogwarts Legacy, a great game. Playing that right now with the girlfriend, and there's a show coming to HBO of that video game. It's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
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 cool. No, dude, yeah, I'm a sucker for buying the old sealed games that I played through. Like even like the one PS4 game that I do really want is like I want a nice Fortnite copy, even though I know that like most people never had a physical copy of
yeah.
that. There are some, and
It's
I'm just
hard.
like, man, like I have such good memories playing that in college with my buddies. Like I just want
Yeah,
one. You know,
yeah,
even if it's not a great investment, I won't.
yeah, yeah. 100%. Yeah. Um. So, pivoting now to, I know we talked about video games and we've been talking a lot about sports cards. Are there any other collectible categories that you're excited about that you feel are poised for growth?
Um, I A category that I just think is wildly underdeveloped that probably is going to take another decade to sort of sort itself out is sealed music. I think is really interesting. I think there's so
Yeah.
much nostalgia around vinyl and CDs and cassette tapes, and it's a really underdeveloped market. And I think there's some grading companies that have entered the space, but they haven't really risen to prominence yet. And I don't know that there's a deep backlog yet of all the different variants and things like that. And so much of it will take time and education and research and things like that. But just from my perspective, it feels like a category that there's real opportunity in over the long haul as this sort of infrastructure gets built out. I think there's definitely some things that excite me about game worn too. Um, And yeah, I don't know. I would say there's like 50 different collectible categories. We could go from like Disneyana to coins to dollar bills to like, and go one by one through them all and be like, how do you
Yeah,
feel about
yeah.
this one? But I think like, I think generally speaking that those would be a couple that I just feel like aren't necessarily primed for crazy breakout right now. Maybe I think if anything's primed for a big breakout in the moment, it might be game worn, particularly with this really impressive set of messy game worn jerseys that are currently at Sotheby's.
Oh, cool.
But if you made me say, hey, like what in the next 10 years might have some killer upside, I might go with music. I think any of
Mhm.
that killer upside stuff is super speculative, but I do feel like
Yeah.
if that infrastructure gets bid out there in a proper way, that could be a little bit of a sleeping giant.
Absolutely. There's been some very impressive sales in the sealed music market too. I mean, we actually just recently had Robbie over from AMG on the podcast, and we talked
Dude,
about
he's the man.
yeah, yeah, Robbie's awesome, and we talked about the story with Eminem and how he coordinated that and got that vinyl signed that was owned by, I believe, his lawyer or his agent, and it is a beauty. It was so cool that they actually got the video of him actually signing the vinyl, and it's such a rare piece of memorabilia. And that thing sold for I think $60,000. Incredible sale.
Yeah, it was a pretty big number. Yeah, Rob's great. I like what AMG is doing, and I
Yeah,
think that's really golden as well. So it was a good mix of good people selling a sweet item, and yeah, it did a big number. And I don't know, I but even like that is a big number. But if you compare it against other collectible categories, that
yeah,
being like the big item is a relatively small number, and so
sure.
it still makes me feel like there's some real upside in that category.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen higher sales in the VHS market. Even with Star Wars, there's actually the only known first print of The Godfather on VHS is up on Heritage and ends on Friday. Yeah, that's crazy,
Oh,
really
that's
crazy.
pretty. I just got my first sub of VHS tapes back actually from CGC, and I
That's
had like
awesome.
what did I have in there? I had Happy Gilmore, I had like
Yeah,
National Treasure,
so
had
good.
like
Love it.
Toy Story 2, Spider Man, just like stuff that I was into and nostalgic about. There was a
Love it.
Mallrats copy that I thought was really
Yeah, that's
clean,
awesome.
and it got a 9.4 A plus. So I was kind of like, ah, I thought that was 9.6. But but yeah, VHS tapes are very cool. That's I didn't know there
Yeah,
was only one known copy of the original Godfather. What's that bidding
as
at?
of now. So this one, I think it's only around like 1,500, but that thing can shoot up, overnight. I mean, just in a couple minutes. But as of right now, it's the only known true first print. It's a enlarged gatefold copy, and VGA had to create a special label or special casing for that VHS tape. So very cool that they were involved in that and
Interesting.
see
Well,
what it does.
you are like significantly more informed than me in the VHS.
We actually have a couple items up for auction on Heritage too that ends on Friday. We have a Back to the Future. Yeah,
I'll
little plug
pop the
there.
link over after this call. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So for all of our listeners out there, what's a piece of advice that you would give someone just starting their journey in the collectible space?
And the biggest piece of advice I would give, and this is going to be really broad, is just know what your goals are. I think a lot of people sort of come in and don't really know what they're trying to do. Are they trying to make money? Are they buying things they like? The two can get sort of conflated. If you're
Yeah.
just buying things that you like and they're things for your personal collection that is for your own personal joy and to display at your own place or whatever it is, then like you almost don't need a whole lot of advice from anyone, right? Like maybe you want to know how to grade a card, or maybe you want to know how to, you know, clean a card and prep it or whatever it is, right? But I think if you're just buying for fun and for joy, not worried about what the stuff's worth later on, and like lean into that and don't feel like you need to take advice from a ton of people about what's cool and what's not. And I would just buy more what speaks to you and what you get nostalgic about. And then
Yeah.
I would also say too, though, if you're someone that is trying to build a little bit of an investment portfolio around collectibles, I think the people that are actually really genuinely into it and not doing it just purely for money actually tend to be the ones that make out the best because they're the ones that have a real sense of like what collectors are going to want in the long term are the ones who
Yeah.
are like, oh man, this is sick, this is awesome, if something really excites you as a collector, it probably will excite other people down the road too. And so um, those are the two things I would probably say as general pieces of advice for new collectors is sort of like if you're doing it just for fun, then have a blast and don't let people tell you what's cool and what's not cool. And if you're doing it to try and make money, it will behoove you to actually really enjoy it and love it and get invested in the industry with more than your dollars.
That's such a great point. Especially in certain markets that we get excited about, we start learning a lot of things about them, and there are certain variants we start learning about, specifically like the VHS market, and then we just generally get excited ourselves, and then we start meeting people that have been around in this for almost a decade, maybe 2 decades, and we find out that they're generally excited about the same things that we're excited about. That's like the most aha moment. Like we are onto something here. Is that we sincerely got excited about something independently from them, but we found out that we mutually all feel the same way about this stuff, and I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. I'm 100% with you.
Yeah. So that brings us to our next thing. Thanks so much again for. Oh, that's not it.
I didn't donate those.
We're really excited about this donation. So this, we have a sports card and a video game. Maybe you could tell us a little about this card that you donated for the charity auction.
Yeah, so Alan Garrett is one of my all-time favorite sets. This
So
is
cool.
actually a card that I pulled out of a case that I opened and submitted myself, and it got a 10. And I think I got 3 of them out of the case or so. And Wemby's hot, and this is a fun card. This is not, in my opinion, a long-term investment card, but this is a great like gift stocking stuff for like man of the moment type thing, right? Like Wemby's just a big deal right now, and he's playing really well. And I think this is, like I said, there's going to be more NBA licensed Prism cards and whatnot, and stuff's going to go up and down and crazy. And this is one of his earlier cards, so like I don't want to pitch this as something it's not. To me, this is a cool, fun card and a neat collectible for the price, but probably not an investment piece, but still just like man of the moment, and people are really excited by Wemby right now. So I thought it made sense to give you guys one.
It's been really fun hearing about him when he originally came to the NBA, and just seeing the photos of him holding a baseball.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's not like palming it. It's like his fingers are touching around the edges of it.
Like, it completely disappears in his hand. I've never seen it like that in my life. It's crazy. And the second item we have is Need for Speed Underground 2. High grade as well.
Yeah, so this is one I would actually like give a little more of a sales pitch on than the last one. I'm a big, like I said before, I'm a big video game collector, and Need for Speed Underground 2 is one of those titles to me that I'm super nostalgic about. I love so many games in that Need for Speed series, Underground, Most Wanted, Carbon, games like that. But I think Need for Speed Underground 2 is a pretty culturally important title. There's not a ton of these copies graded. It is hard to find sealed copies in nice condition. Part of the reason I chose this one to give, which was a game from my personal collection that I did not intend to get rid of, was I found a 988 Plus that I bought, and I bought it right away the second it came for sale. So I sort of upgraded. I jumped over to PS2 because it was what was available. But to me, I'm a big believer in the space. I think the Need for Speed series is generally quite undervalued. There's pop reports online for these. I don't know them off the top of my head, but if you want to know exactly how many of these are out there, how many are graded higher, what the different variants are, you can easily go on WADA's site and click into their pop reports and see that. But to me, this would be a great one to buy and sit on your shelf for 10 years and forget that you have it, and then look up its price in another 10 years. I think this is actually a really great one to buy and hold on to, and certainly one that for me drives a ton of nostalgia.
I love it. Yeah. So all you need for Speed fans, get in here and make some bids on this. Make a bid on an awesome collectible for an amazing cause. It's really cool. So
yeah,
we actually
100%. And I think I might even, I got to poke through this auction too. I might bid more than a few things are worth too, just because I know the money's going to a good cause, and
100%.
It's an awesome thing to put together here.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, and everyone out there, just so you know, these collectibles, when they go for sale, 100% of the proceeds are going to go to the First Responders Children's Foundation. And there are a lot of, including Eric's collectibles, there are a lot of other awesome collectibles as well, including this. This is pretty wild. This is a generous donation from CGC. It's signed by 43 comic book artists. It took almost a year to complete. Absolutely insane. Beckett. This is a really cool Star Wars tape donated by Beckett. And you just have so many awesome collectibles in here, donated by over 10 partners. So very excited to see the outcome of this. We're going to be doing a live stream on Thursday. We're going to watch each auction end and do a live stream, and everyone who wants to get involved can come on and join us. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice.
Eric, I can't thank you enough for coming.
Send me a link to that. I might be around.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, it'll be from 4 to 6 PST, but I'll definitely send you a link. It'll be a lot of fun. Yep. Eric, I can't thank you enough for coming on today, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise, man. This is I'll say this is the second of many. I really enjoy coming on here with you and hanging out and having a good time. And I can tell we're really like-minded people. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's always a blast to be here. Keep up the great work, man.
Thanks, bro. You too. And everyone out there, if you're not following Eric, make sure to follow him at Eric Whiteback on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We'll make sure to include the links in the details below. And thank you everyone for joining. This has been a lot of fun. We'll see you on the next one.